In 1453, Constantinople fell to the Turks. The remnants of the Eastern Christian Empire disintegrated, and all surviving Christian Europe shuddered at the prospects of an infidel empire sweeping everything before it. Wallachia, hitherto subservient to Ottoman hegemony only to the extent of paying tribute, was now in the front line. Whereas it had been the Turks who first assisted Vlad to assume control over Wallachia, it was now the turn of his powerful Hungarian neighbours to patronize him. Beginning in 1456, he ruled his principality with an iron hand, and in so doing acquired the sobriquet Dracula, literally son of the dragon, the name by which he became known to his Western contemporaries. Yet such was the verve with which he set about centralizing his power, so that the news of his gruesome exploits careered across Europe, that he soon earned himself a more colourful and accurate nickname, Vlad Tepes, pronounced Pesh, the Impaler. Torture and execution by impalement were hardly novel. Such methods could be traced back to antiquity, and were practiced by the Turks themselves. It was the sheer scale and sophistication of Tepes' operations that caused sensation. In its most artistic form, the stake would be rounded, greased, and introduced into the fundament, with the weight of the body bearing down upon it. Death could take hours, or, preferably, from his point of view, days. For variety, stakes could penetrate other parts of the body. The methods would vary according to the age, rank, sex, or nationality of the victim. And to full aesthetic criteria, the stakes would be arranged vertically in concentric circles or other pleasing patterns, with the noblest victims perched highest of all. Woodcuts of the time depict Tepes' seat at the table in the open, feasting alone amid rows of impaled and mutilated bodies. In the absence of the centralized authority which Tepes now set about establishing, the Romanian principalities were racked by factional interests. His power remained strictly notional until he could deal with two deeply entrenched and privileged minority groups. The boyars, landed noblemen, effectively lived as they pleased, immune to the demands of their princes, and happy to foster the claims of any aspiring ruler sympathetic to their privileges. Tepes' rival claimants found sanctuary among boyar communities, so he dealt with their treason in a forthright manner, by impaling them in their thousands. The economic infrastructure of the Romanian lands was largely controlled by traders and merchants of Saxon descent, whose monopolistic privileges dated back to when the region was being effectively colonized from German sources in the 12th and 13th century. Tepes sequestered foreign merchants' trading rights and instituted protectionist measures designed to safeguard native Wallachian commerce. He then redistributed their properties to his acolytes in an attempt to forge new economic alignments beneficial to himself and his consolidation of power. Tepes was no less compromising when he turned his attention to the Turks. In 1459, he felt sufficiently secure at home to refuse traditional payments of tribute, thus endearing himself to the Christian powers. 2 years later, spurred on by the demands of Pope Pius II for a fresh military campaign, he earned himself a place in the annals of Christian crusading by marching an army south across the Danube. He temporarily liberated those territories recently conquered, and impaled those Turks unfortunate enough not to escape or to be killed outright in the battle. By embarking on this crusade, Tepes was not declaring his devotion to Christ. He was a gifted military strategist, and was doubtless aware of the need to secure his southern gateway to Wallachia, across the exposed plains of the Danube. Ingrained hatred of the Turks for past sufferings probably accounted for any personal motivation. Yet his situation was precarious without material assistance from other Western and Christian leaders. None was forthcoming. Probably they feared the Turkish backlash. In the event, Tepes, upon his retreat, found himself imprisoned by Matthias Corvinus, king of Hungary, who had earlier received bags which contained several thousand pieces of Turkish anatomy as evidence of Tepes' effectiveness. Corvinus probably acted as he did out of fear of Tepes' increasing autonomy. He was becoming too much his own man, showing too little deference to his Hungarian neighbours and patrons. The irate boyar class had also pressured Corvinus to act against their hated overseer. The lowland peasants had been alienated by Tepes' scorched earth policy of poisoning wells and burning settlements to inconvenience the Turks, and he was rumoured to have adopted Islam scandalously in an attempt to save his own skin. Imprisonment in Hungary spelled the end of Vlad Tepes' spectacular activities. Between 1456 and 1462, he carved himself a niche in Europe's Hall of Fame. After 12 years' forced residence in Hungary, he was released by Corvinus, who was now anxious to display his magnanimity, renew the struggle with the Turks, and make use of the talented warrior in his custody. According to some sources, Tepes renounced his Orthodox faith and embraced Catholicism as his passport to freedom. By the end of 1476, he again reigned supreme in Wallachia, but lost his life in combat with the Turks a few weeks later. What happened to his body is a matter of speculation. Some say his head was detached and presented to the Sultan in Constantinople. Legend has it that his corpse, with or without his head, is buried in an island monastery in Snegov, outside Bucharest. Whatever the case, his legacy was to have personally authorized during his lifetime the deaths of some 100,000 people, the equivalent of 1/5 of the population of his native Wallachia at that time. All rulers invite controversy. It is all a matter of perspective. Yet few can have been the subject of such conflicting evaluations as Vlad Tepes. He became a Renaissance European legend in his own lifetime, largely inspired by boyar intrigues to discredit him. Accounts of his misdeeds, both real and exaggerated, were disseminated throughout Europe. Saxons, Hungarians, Turks, and Russians all had cause to despise him. Word of mouth, embellished in the passing, soon portrayed him as one of the great demented psychopaths of history. Wandering minstrels put his atrocities to song, and technological advances in German-speaking parts of Europe spread the message further. Handwritten reports were gradually supplanted by news sheets tumbling off the newly invented printing presses. The new medium had found a celebrity, and by the end of the century he was providing some of the favorite reading matter of the continent, vying for space with Columbus' discovery of America. One source maintains that for a while, incunabula devoted to Dracula's activities were outselling the Bible. By 1558, news of Dracula's excesses even reached Britain, when Sebastian Munster's Cosmographia was translated into English. It would have been these German-based versions of events which grabbed Stoker's attention through the books and articles he consulted, possibly supplemented by the Hungarian perspective of Arminius Vambray. There was, however, another slant, that of the heroic exploits of a fearless Christian crusader. Unfortunately for his self-image, Tepes could not so easily be defended by the people of Wallachia, had they so chosen, because facilities for printing lagged behind those of the West. Not until a century after his death were counter-versions of his motives available for his homeland. In the interim, it was left to chroniclers in lands untouched by his atrocities to present him in a less brutal light and to rationalize his deeds as anticipating the thoughts of Machiavelli, for whom almost any act was justifiable in the name of raison d'etat. Even Machiavelli admitted it was better to be feared than loved. As the centre of gravity in European affairs moved steadily westwards, Vlad Tepes became a forgotten man. He would be resuscitated by two quite disparate developments. The first was Bram Stoker's novel, which sent researchers scurrying after its source. The second was the formation of the Romanian Socialist Republic of the 1940s, faced with the task of searching for national heroes who could help bind modern Romania to its past. Vlad Tepes had all the credentials. He is not known inside Romania as Dracula, but as Tepes, after his favourite form of execution. His memory has been rehabilitated. In Romanian eyes, he is guilty of no more than realpolitik. He is the equivalent of England's Robin Hood, someone who took from the rich in order to give to the poor, a freedom fighter and curber of foreign privileges, a man who virtually single-handedly eliminated theft and other crime, and whose excesses are viewed as consonant with the general cruelty of the age in which he lived. He is seen as a founding father of the Romanian nation-state, a hero of the Orthodox Church, a kind of Caesar and Pope all in one. But the previously mentioned condemnatory assessment of Vlad Tepes was the one which Stoker was familiar, and as such the impaler was ideally suited to be resurrected and transformed into a fictional vampire. Besides, the finished novel would possess added authenticity through being woven round an actual historical character. What would also have intrigued Stoker was an ambiguity surrounding the name Dracula, as is made clear in the Wilkinson article which Stoker consulted at Whitby. Dracul did not only refer to a dragon. Dracul in Wallachian language means devil. It is, however, unlikely that a founder of monasteries and close consort of religious leaders, for whatever ulterior motives, would have been referred to in this derogatory fashion, let alone signing himself devil. The dragon alternative is the more plausible. Moreover, although devils are not linguistically confused with vampires in that part of the world, there is still a tradition in German-Romanian frontier regions of depicting vampires as dragon monster serpents, but the interlocking imagery of devil and dragon in Christian mythology and the frequent overlapping of etymologies of vampire and devil in various languages may have provided Stoker with an ingenious concept, Vlad the Vampire. The linkage between Vlad Dracul and Count Dracula is not a matter of conjecture. It is made explicit in the novel. When Van Helsing decides to take others into his confidence, he explains, he, Count Dracula, must indeed have been that voivode Dracula who won his name against the Turks. If it be so, then was he no common man, for in that time, and for centuries after, he was spoken of as the cleverest and most cunning, as well as the bravest of the sons of the land beyond the forest.